This just isn't about one plane crash anymore. It's a crisis that's unfolding at 30,000 feet inside an airline that was once considered the pride of India. What is going on with Air India that since the air crash has now cancelled 83 flights in just 6 days, and we're only getting started. We're going to break that down in this video. Now, before I go forward, a quick appeal to everyone who's watching to please sign up for our membership or use the super chat feature to support us financially, because anything you give us will help us do the news better. And remember, my team and I are focused on being able to give you as much credible, dignified information about the news as we can. Coming back to the story at hand, now, it was one of the worst of the recent aviation disasters that India has seen, where over 270 precious lives were lost. We're now told that as of today, 190 victims have been identified through DNA testing, 159 bodies have been handed over to families, and investigations are currently on to read the black box that was discovered. But what we're looking at on this video is this, that since the 12th of June, when that Dreamliner crashed, Air India alone has cancelled 83 flights. Let me repeat that, 83 flights in 6 days. Of these, 66 were Boeing 787 Dreamliners, which is the same aircraft model that crashed. So what is going on? On Tuesday alone, which was yesterday, 7 international flights were cancelled. And these are not small routes. This was Delhi-Paris, Bengaluru-London, Delhi-Dubai, Mumbai-San Francisco, which were pulled last minute. And the airline says it was due to either technical issues or unavailability of aircraft. But the question is there confidence within Air India cracking? Are the pilots getting more nervous? Are the flyers or the passengers becoming more nervous? Air India also tried to move past the crash by basically retiring the flight number AI-171, which was the flight number that actually crashed, and replacing it with a new code, which is AI-159. The new flight from Ahmedabad to London was supposed to resume operations on the 16th of June, but on the 17th, just a day after, it was cancelled again. Although the airline denied any sort of technical problems, the official records from Air India's own website confirmed that the flight never did take off. Then came the more chaotic scenes, the San Francisco-Mumbai flight, which had to be routed through Kolkata due to a closed airspace because of the tensions in the Middle East. Once it landed in Kolkata, it never took off from Kolkata because it had to be terminated midway after an engine snag. 211 passengers were forced to deboard in the middle of the night in Kolkata airport. They were obviously stranded and confused and angry. There was no clear communication from the airline, a new official statement from Air India yet, just more silence and more confusion. Now, Air India on its part has said that it is providing hotel accommodation, it is offering full refunds on cancellations and complimentary rescheduling for those, if the passengers choose to opt for rescheduling. Air India has also said it's making alternative flying arrangements for passengers to reach their destinations at the earliest. But the situation regarding flights cancelled by the airline, simultaneously there are media reports to suggest flyers are also cancelling their plans, which means that after 16 June, there was one report on Money Control that said domestic airlines in India have witnessed a 15 to 20% rise in cancellations following that air crash. Domestic passengers are rescheduling to avoid flying altogether, or they are avoiding the Boeing aircraft, or in some cases they are avoiding Air India in general. There are some people who've actually been quoted by that article to say that basically they're just not comfortable or they're not nervous. Now, there is, of course, something called flight anxiety. People who are nervous flyers, who dislike flying. And obviously, there is research to tell us that when there is a large scale incident or an accident or a crash that we have just witnessed, which as a country we're still getting over, people with flight anxiety, who don't like altitude, who don't like unfamiliar confined spaces, the lack of control, who have anxious thoughts, it actually makes things worse for them. So a lot of people, like I said, are reconsidering air travel altogether, avoiding Boeing aircrafts and avoiding Air India. One Canada-based entrepreneur who frequently flies between UK, Canada and India said that he's experiencing, and this was a India Today article, he said he's experiencing what he called a psychological block to get on Air India again. He said, despite delays and service issues, I always felt like a supporter of Air India, but now I just don't feel safe taking a Air India flight. Civil aviation insiders are acknowledging that the crash has dented public confidence. Now, all of this makes us turn towards the regulators, or the government that's regulating the aviation sector. The Director General of Civil Aviation, the DGCA, in its statement has said that it met with officials of Air India and Air India Express, and they collectively operate 1,000 domestic and international flights daily. And the DGCA has reviewed its operational robustness. It's ensured continued compliance with safety and passenger service regulations. And this is the statement that it says, and I'm quoting, the DGCA has raised concerns regarding recent maintenance-related issues reported by Air India. And it basically said that, however, after recent surveillance on Air India's Boeing 787 fleet, it did not find any major safety concerns. The aircraft and associate maintenance systems were found to be in compliance with existing safety standards. So there's a clean sheet there from the DGCA that says that it's looked at the Dreamliner fleet, it's looked at the 787 fleet, it's looked at all of Air India and Air India Express and has not found any violations and no major safety concerns. But people are still nervous, and that's something that needs to be acknowledged. Now, an enhanced safety inspection of the 787, the 789, the 788 fleet, comprising a total of 33 aircrafts, have undergone major checks at MRO facilities. The DGCA said a total of 24 aircraft have completed the required check as of the 17th of June. The additional 2 aircrafts are planned completion by Tuesday and 1 more on Wednesday. And the regulator has recommended an implementation of a more systematic real-time defect reporting mechanism to ensure operational and safety critical departments receive timely updates. So basically what the DGCA is saying that, hey, we've checked everything and we have not found anything particularly of concern. Now, although I was looking at something else, there's something called Airline Ratings.com, which is an independent, sort of global body that does ratings of all airlines across the world. It has, and it uses, you can find it online. It's called airlinesrating.com. And I want to point out to you that this is not, this is not a government body, or this is not a government investigator. So you have to take it slightly lightly as to how seriously you want to take it. It's given Indian, aircrafts like Indigo and Akasa have scored 6. SpiceJet has ranked a perfect 7 on 7. And in this airlineratings.com, in terms of safety rating, Air India got a 4 on 7. So you can take a look at that separately, but like I would say, since it's not a government ratings program, or not any government rating program, you might want to not put too much stock into it. Meanwhile, the US aircraft manager, Boeing's head of commercial airplanes, Stephanie Pope, has met with Tata Sons chairman N. Chandrasekhar during a visit to the Air India headquarters in Delhi on Monday. Now, specific details of what they discussed is not known, but obviously their conversation would have been about the crash in Ahmedabad last week. I want to point out to you that we've put out a separate video on the concerns about Boeing separately, but I want to give you a quick recap of what that is. Boeing 737 MAX in 2018, there was one Lion Air crash. In 2019, the Ethiopian Airlines crash as well. And 737 MAX was grounded worldwide for 20 months in order to solve those problems, the longest grounding in aviation history of the world. Then between 2023 and 2025, Boeing faced multiple issues across multiple products. The 787 Dreamliner, which is what we're talking about, they had loose bolts, poorly drilled holes, fuselage problems, several whistleblowers complaining about the Dreamliner. So, and one whistleblower, John Barnett, was found dead after he testified about safety lapses. Again, there's a separate video on this, on the issues in Boeing, and this is something that one hopes that our government is also looking at very closely. In recent incidents, January last year, the Alaskan Airlines 737 MAX, the door plug blew off. In April this year, reports emerged of mislabeled and forged quality control documents. In June this year, of course, we know what happened in Ahmedabad. The FAA, the US Congress, the NTSB are currently have investigations into Boeing at this point. But so on one hand, there is, what Air India is telling us, what the DGCA is telling us about Air India, the fact, of course, that we want the DGCA to look at Boeing altogether. But I also want to point out to you in terms of pilots turning things around, turning aircrafts around and flying it back to its nearest, nearest airport, there is research that supports the fact that risk-taking behavior by pilots shift after a massive air crash. They are less likely to, to sort of be cowboys about bad weather or a little bit of a technical snag. After experiencing or witnessing or hearing about a crash, their internal risk threshold tends to shift. They become more risk averse. And that change in perception leads them to make more conservative decisions. There's an entire research paper about this as well to support the fact that pilots, so that could also be happening in Air India, the fact that passengers are now nervous and pilots are also perhaps less, less likely to take risks. The next thing that we're going to wait for is obviously the black box reading to find out what really happened with that aircraft. And I just want to point out to you that typically when a crash like this happens, if the black box is easily located, it takes about 1 to 3 days. If it's not intact, it takes up to 5 days. It takes 3 weeks to, depending on the complexity of the air crash, to actually read to analyze the recordings, and the report comes out within 30 days. What's happening here, for what we've got confirmed in India, is that the flight recorder and the cockpit voice recorder were found in 3 days, which seems to be on track with that list that I just told you. The civil aviation minister confirmed that both recorders are being decoded right now. A high-level government committee has been mandated to issue a report within 3 months. So it will take 3 months before we know whether, whose fault it was, if there was anybody's fault, or what was the cause behind that crash. We know that a preliminary report has to come out within 30 days, but we don't know whether that preliminary report is something that will be given public access, or we'll be able to know what was in it. So then where does that leave you as someone who maybe needs to take a flight? Should you take a flight or not? If you're a particularly anxious flyer, what should you do? Well, let me give you some sort of broad strokes data. As of 2024, released in 2025, the International Air Transport Association, so IATA, basically said that as of last year, they calculated one incident every 880,000 flights. So the odds of you actually being in an accident is 1 per million flights as per IATA, and on a 5-year average that is apparently improved drastically. Now, research sourced by Bloomberg suggests that as of 2024, the deadliest year for aviation since 2018, 500 people were killed in that 1 year, but the odds of you getting hurt on an aircraft through a crash are literally 1.1 per million. So these are the odds right now, unfortunately, that we have to hang on to. The fact that our DGCA has given a clearance and a clean chit to the aircrafts that Air India is currently flying, the fact that there is an investigation on, and we know that pilots are being extraordinarily careful, which actually could suggest that you are in better hands right now than you were before the crash, because they're being so cautious that they don't want to take any risks at all. So they're most likely to ground an aircraft rather than fly it into bad weather. So unfortunately, I know this is not particularly reassuring, because we are talking about 83 aircrafts that have actually been turned around, that have had emergency landings or been cancelled altogether. But this is the information that we have to work with right now. Leave me a question in the comment section on what makes you nervous about flying. Are you a nervous flyer? Are you a confident flyer? And does this crash change your opinion about flying at all in any way?